Today, we're going to talk about a medical myth that, for decades, shaped how we treat one of the most common injuries out there, the concussion. It's a story about how science can get something wrong, and then how it can get it right.
So let's say it happens. You take a hit, you feel that foggy, dizzy feeling, you have a concussion. Your first thought is probably, okay, what do I do right now to get better? Well, for a very long time, the answer you'd get from just about everyone was crystal clear. And that answer was simple: complete and total rest. The logic seems sound, right? Your brain is injured, so you should give it a total break. No physical activity, try not to think too hard. Basically, shut everything down.
This method even had a name that sounds kind of comforting: cocooning. The idea was to wrap yourself in this protective bubble of inactivity. You'd stay there, in the quiet, maybe in a dark room, until every single one of your symptoms, the headaches, the dizziness, all of it was completely gone.
It makes perfect sense on the surface, but what if that well-intentioned advice wasn't just unhelpful? What if it was actually slowing down your recovery? That one question changed everything. So let's look at how the cracks started to appear in this cocoon theory, and why doctors began to question the old rules.
Out in the real world, clinicians started noticing a weird pattern. Some patients who were following the strict rest rules to the letter, well, they just weren't getting better. In fact, some of them seemed to be stuck with their symptoms for even longer. This observation kicked off a whole wave of new research to figure out what was really going on. And a huge clue came from this number: 5 days. A really important study was set up to compare different rest periods, and honestly, the results completely blindsided everyone. And here it is. This is where the old thinking gets totally flipped on its head. A major study, we're talking the gold standard of medical research, found that telling adolescents to rest for 5 full days actually led to them having symptoms for longer than the kids who were only told to rest for 2 days. That's right, more rest was actually worse.
And this wasn't just a fluke. The evidence started piling up. Another study found zero benefit from a prescribed day of rest versus no rest at all. A different one showed that letting patients do some light, spontaneous activity was perfectly safe. And then, a huge study of over 2,400 kids found that getting back to some physical activity within a week was actually linked to a lower risk of those nagging symptoms that just won't go away.
The message was loud and clear. The cocoon had to go. And in its place, a totally new philosophy started to take hold, all based on a pretty radical idea. What if exercise wasn't the enemy? What if it was the medicine? Now, this new approach has a bit of a fancy name: subsymptom threshold aerobic exercise. But all it really means is doing some light cardio, like on a stationary bike, at a very specific level, right below the point where your symptoms start to act up. It's not about pushing through the pain. It's about gently nudging the system. So why on earth does this work? Well, a concussion can mess with the brain's automatic control system, the one that manages stuff like blood flow without you even thinking about it. The leading theory is that this kind of controlled, light exercise acts like a reset button, helping to restore the brain's ability to regulate its own blood supply and get things back to normal. A cool theory is one thing, but in science, you've got to have the proof. And believe me, the proof that active recovery works is really, really strong. Take a look at this. In a landmark 2019 study, one group of concussed teens did the prescribed aerobic exercise, and another did a simple stretching routine, kind of like a placebo. The results were just striking. The exercise group recovered in about 13 days. The stretching group, 17 days. That's a 4-day difference. And when you're feeling awful from a concussion, 4 days is an eternity. And the researchers didn't pull any punches. Their conclusion was as clear as day. The group that did the aerobic exercise got better, significantly faster. This wasn't a random chance. It was a powerful, measurable effect of using exercise as medicine. And since then, the evidence has just become a mountain. I mean, look at this. The 2020 review this explainer is based on looked at dozens of studies, and each one adds another piece to the puzzle, building this overwhelming case for the new, active approach. Okay, so the science is solid. But what does this actually mean for you, or for someone you know who gets a concussion? Let's break down the new playbook for recovery. Here's how it works now. First, you still take it easy, but only for a very short period, like 24 to 48 hours. Then, you see a medical provider who can actually test you to find that exact heart rate where your symptoms kick in. After that, you start your daily exercise, making sure to stay safely below that threshold. And finally, once you're handling the exercise without any issues, you can start that gradual step-by-step return to school, work, and sports. I mean, just look at the difference. It is night and day. The old way was all about avoidance, hiding, and waiting. The new way is proactive. It's about safe, early movement. Instead of fearing activity, we now see it as one of the most important tools we have for healing. And what kind of movement are we talking about? Well, a stationary bike is often the best place to start because your head stays pretty still. A brisk walk, a light jog, or even swimming are also great options. What you want to avoid, at least at first, is anything that strains you too much, like heavy weightlifting or activities where you could fall and hit your head again, like biking outside. So, if you take one thing away from all this, let it be this. Cocooning yourself in a dark room is officially history. A safe, early, and medically guided active recovery isn't just a new idea anymore. It's the gold standard for getting you back on your feet after a concussion. And this whole story is just such a powerful reminder that science is always a work in progress. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If we could be so sure about something like complete rest for so long and be so wrong, what other things that we accept as medical fact today might be completely turned upside down in the next 20 years?